What I've been calling a rock star bus at in the UK following the World Cup rugby. In fact, she's in a town called Rugby, and that's where she brings our latest sports news update from. Good morning to you, Vaylen.
Thank you very much, Leanne. Well, it was with great anticipation that the ABSA Red Bus made its way from London to the birthplace of rugby. It was not good enough to just be in the town that has lended its name to the game, known by many as the greatest team sport in the world, but we are parked 200 metres from the field where it is said to have all taken place. We're back in 1823. A pupil, William Webb Ellis, broke the rules by running forward with the ball, and this was the start of the game known as rugby. A very good morning and welcome to the place where it all began. You'll remember during the Rugby World Cup opening ceremony, we saw Prince Harry and Johnny Wilkinson dressed up as gardeners, and they were standing in the corner right by the gate, which is actually behind me, and they were reenacting the story of when William Webb Ellis actually ran with the ball. And you saw the two gardeners saying, "It's a game that'll never take off." Well, it certainly has, and for the next month and a half, it's going to capture the entire world's imagination, as it did on Saturday with that historic victory for the Japanese at the Brighton Community Stadium. So this is where we are, and it's in this very traditional, historic place where we are bringing you today's broadcast live. Yesterday was the second race day for the Rugby World Cup, but that doesn't mean that there was a lack of stories. So let's get you up to speed with some of the latest stories in and around the Rugby World Cup. All Blacks coach Steve Hansen announced a starting lineup to face Namibia that included 12 changes from the side that faced Argentina on Sunday. It's a bench that contains players with a remarkable 660 caps. New Zealand will be captained by flanker Sam Cane for the very first time. Meanwhile, English media have reported that England will start with Owen Farrell at fly half with the centre partnership of Sam Burgess and Brad Barrett for their pivotal Rugby World Cup Pool A game against Wales. Outside centre Jonathan Joseph being ruled out due to injury, a big loss for them. And Japan coach Eddie Jones has said that their match against Scotland today is a chance to prove that the win over the Springboks was no fluke. Well, media reports at the beginning of this week confirmed that Eddie Jones will be making his way to the Stormers for the upcoming Super Rugby season. So watch out, all the other teams, after what he's been able to do with the last 3 years with the Brave Blossoms. It is Rugby World Cup action that will be taking place later on today. Many people very excited to finally see action back on the field. There are two matches that you'll be able to watch on SABC2. They are the first two fixtures that you see there on that graphic. Scotland up against Japan, and Australia up against Fiji. Those are the two matches you'll be able to watch live on SABC2. The other fixtures, a Pool D clash which is taking place at the Olympic Park, France up against Romania. Now, before the weekend, Scotland were above Japan in the world rankings, but the win over South Africa has seen the Boks drop to 6th in the world and the Brave Blossoms move up to 11th, and that's above the Scots. So both England and Wales, they will be keeping an eye on the game between Australia and Fiji. Australian flankers Michael Hooper and David Pocock will team up. Will Genia also will feature in the Wallabies side after 3 lean years, which is plagued by injury. That's for that Australia-Fiji clash. Lot to look forward to. All right, so later on today, what's also going to be happening of South African interest is the fact that our national coach, Hanneke Meyer, will be announcing his team that will be taking on Samoa come Saturday in Birmingham. Our TCC, our camp correspondent, Simon Burke, gets the latest from the Springbok camp.
Springboks continue to work hard on the rugby pitches at the University of Birmingham, determined to put right what is wrong.
We can't change the past. A lot of us know how disappointing Saturday's result was, how much we let not only ourselves, our jersey, our family, but the country down. And like I say, it's about now bouncing back. What's happened has happened. We can't rectify that, but what we can rectify is to go out there and hopefully make each other, make the jersey, and make everyone proud.
And of course, part of the experience of playing at this Rugby World Cup in England is playing at football stadiums. And the Springboks say they're quite excited to be playing at Villa Park, which is Aston Villa's home ground.
I think a lot of guys have watched Aston Villa play in the Premiership on a number of times, and I think the result aside, I think there was a fantastic vibe on Brighton, and I think there will be a fantastic vibe at Villa Park again. Through it all, rugby stays a fantastic game, and I think the way that the people embrace this World Cup has been unbelievable, and I think the same will be on Saturday.
On the injury front, Trevor Nyakani was not at practice today. He has a bug, and Willem Alberts trained on his own with that calf injury. I'm Simon Burke, bringing you the latest from the Springbok camp.
Before we made our way to rugby, we were in London just for a day, and that's where I got the opportunity to catch up with Durban-born former Shark man that won the Currie Cup with the Sharks back in 2010. He's now the captain of Viva Premiership champions Saracen. I got the opportunity to catch up with Alistair Hargreaves and his wife Carmen, who now live and of course work in London, and I got the chance to find out what it's like to actually play in England. Now, a very interesting thing about Alistair is that he actually took the captain's armband from Steve Borthwick. Steve Borthwick is involved with Eddie Jones in the Japanese setup, and it was Steve Borthwick who is the forwards coach and has really turned around the fortunes of what's happening when it comes to the Japanese scrum, and one that will hurt South Africa and South African memories for a very, very long time. So it was Alistair Hargreaves that took the captain's armband at Saracens from Steve Borthwick. But he's a man that has leadership skills, and that was seen in the fact that he was national age group captain for a number of different tours when he was a youngster growing up. So let's find out what it's like to live and work in England.
It's definitely a little bit different. These people are football mad. That's their national passion. But people love rugby as well. The crowds are really good. They're really supportive. They're quite knowledgeable as well. And as you've seen so far from the World Cup support, people are passionate about the game here. So this World Cup in the UK is going to be massive for the sport this side of the world as well. So I'm hoping to see it grow, and I think it really is starting to capture the public's imagination here, which is fantastic for us players.
Now, you've got a little bit of a connection with the Japanese team because the forwards coach is Steve Borthwick, a man that you took the captain's armband from at Saracens. Yeah, that's right. I mean, Steve technically is just an absolute genius, and it showed. I think Eddie Jones, another guy, has actually had a stint coaching at Saracens, so there was a bit of a Sarries thumbprint there. But yeah, it was fantastic to work with Steve. Great player, great leader, and I learned a hell of a lot from him. So, look, I think I was proud of Steve, and to watch that game, as a mate, he did a great job. So you've got to give him a pat on the back. Tell us about winning the championship last season and doing it as captain.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, the season before, we'd lost 2 big finals in 2 weekends. We lost the Premiership final to a TMO decision, on a Saturday, and the next weekend we lost, the Heineken Cup final. So that was difficult. That was a bit traumatic. So I think to put those kind of demons to rest was fantastic this, last season. Get the monkey off the back, if you like. So it's given us a lot of confidence and just very rewarding all the hard work and effort that we've put in throughout the years. And it's nice to get a bit of silverware eventually.
We spend a lot of time with my sister's 2 little girls, and they just love him to bits, and he has so much fun with them. So I think he's really excited about becoming a dad in his own right.
I can't wait. I think ready as I'll ever be, or as we'll ever be. So yeah, just a time for that new chapter. And I suppose the guys say remind me constantly at training. It's always a little bit harder than you think it's going to be. But yeah, no, we're so excited.
You're so artistic. You draw. You're a chef. How did you end up with an athletic rugby player? Well, yeah, it does seem a bit unlikely, but Alistair definitely has got quite a big creative side, so we found a lot of similarities in that level. And he actually is really good in the kitchen as well. So
she's actually a very good teacher. So yeah, it's kind of my happy place. Like doing a bit of cooking, causing a bit of a mess.
All right, and Alistair also actually played cricket with our current Test captain, Hashim Amla, at Durban High School for boys. So this is where we are. We're broadcasting from our ABSA Red Bus, which is parked outside of the School of Rugby. So from one captain onto another with historical significance for South Africa. And it's a story that we were told as soon as we actually arrived in our Red Bus here at Rugby. H.H. Castons has an honour which is never likely to ever be passed again. He was our very first South African Springbok captain, and not only did he captain and referee in the very same rugby series, but he also has the honour of having captained both the national cricket team and the national rugby team. This school is so rich in history, in stories, and the people that are behind the scenes, the people that run the school, they take great pride in that, and that is something that has been absolutely wonderful to see. It was a real joy to come here and to actually go inside of their modest but very, very rich little museum that they have here on the site of the rugby school to find out a little bit more about the school as well as the background of the game of rugby. This school is not only known for its rugby because amongst its alumni is Alice in Wonderland author Lewis Carroll. So it really is rich in history from diverse aspects. But of course, it was rugby that we focused in on with Rusty McLean, who is their chief librarian and archivist.
There's a lot of fables and a lot of myths and legends around what actually happened. What is the real story?
The real story is that most of this is a bit of a distraction. Nobody denies that the game as we know it today was created and developed at this school by a group of teenage boys. I think the problem is that people have mistakenly read reports from 1895 and the original information which came from Matthew Bloxham, which quite clearly stated that William Webb Ellis, who was a senior boy in 1823, took the ball in his arms, caught the ball. He did not pick it up. Now, you were allowed to do that in those days, but when you caught the ball, you had to stop, as did the opposition, and then you could move, take a kick towards the opposition's goal. Ellis, who was born in the northwest of England, in fact, sadly, we'll never know why, but he broke that rule. Spirit of innovation, shall we say. And instead of stopping when he caught the ball, he carried on running. Running with the ball was perfectly legal in the 1830s, but picking the ball up was not. And I think that's where the confusion arises, that they've mistakenly said that William Ellis picked up the ball when he didn't. He broke the rule about stopping when you caught the ball. The game in those days was very different to the game played today. You could have over 300 boys on the pitch. Teams could be very different sizes as well. In one match in 1839, 75 boys played against over 200. Matches was like 6 or 7 days. No written rules, but there were rules created by those senior boys, and they changed and modified. No games kit, of course, in those days. You just played in your ordinary clothes. No referees. You didn't need referees because this was a game that was created by that group of boys. But the changes come, particularly in 1839, when Queen Adelaide visited the school. And the schoolhouse boys, they were the headmaster's boarding house, because they were being presented to the Queen, decked themselves out in velvet caps of royal crimson. And we have one of those original caps in our school museum. Now they moved through the school and became following up caps, but eventually they became the international cap. So whenever you hear of somebody being capped for their country, this is where it comes from. The vocabulary which we still use, words like offside, touch, try, maul, all began out on that famous pitch on the close, big side, and all created by those same boys.
A game created by teenage boys. Even the very first written rules back in 1845 was written by 3 teenage boys, 2 17-year-olds and 1 16-year-old. And this is the kind of history that we have been able to learn being here at the rugby school. As you can see, it's still dark. Of course, here in England, they are going into winter. We can certainly feel it. It's very, very chilly, but it also means that it gets lighter a lot later. You get the opportunity to get an idea of our studio. You know that we're traveling around in our red bus throughout England to actually see different English towns and cities, but it's also our studio. So you get the idea of the bus, not only from the outside, but also from the inside. And this is the shelter of the school, and that is the field where it is all said to have happened. Yeah, so it's just so rich, so full of history. And tomorrow morning, we're actually going to be broadcasting from just outside of the William Webb Ellis Museum. So we'll be bringing you some more interesting rugby tidbits. Otherwise, you can tune in to SABC Sport later on today as we bring you live match action. Otherwise, keep up with the latest from the Rugby World Cup with the SABC Sport website, www.sabcsport.co.za. Until tomorrow morning. Goodbye.